Welcome to New Life with Alice. Crescent Moon. Tonight, we're going on a soft and sleepy adventure with a gentle friend who knows exactly how to slow down after a big, busy day. So before we tuck in, can you do one little thing? Tap that subscribe button. It tells YouTube that you enjoy our stories and helps us share more dreamy tales with other lovely listeners just like you. Now snuggle under your blanket, close your eyes, and get cozy. Let's begin. This is Benny the Breezy Bear, a soft and cheerful bear who lived in the peaceful Pinecloud Valley. Evergreen tree bear face. One golden morning, just as the mist was beginning to lift off the tops of the tall pine trees, Benny woke up in his comfy cave nestled under the hill. He gave a long, slow stretch, wiggled his toes, and blinked his eyes as the sunlight peeked through the leaves. He pulled back his leafy curtain and smiled. It was one of those days that felt just right. The kind of day that made you want to explore but also to take things slow and enjoy every moment. Benny's cave was warm and quiet, with little wind chimes made from pine cones hanging near the entrance. They made a soft tinkling sound as the morning breeze drifted by. Tink, tink, tink. After a breakfast of warm berry porridge and a mug of honey blossom tea, Benny decided it was a perfect day to visit his grandpa, Papa Pine, who lived just down the hill. As Benny strolled through the soft mossy path, the forest air filled his lungs with freshness. He listened to the birds chirping gently and noticed how the sunlight sparkled on the dewdrops like tiny stars. When he reached Papa Pine's cabin, he found his grandpa sitting in a stripy hammock between two trees, sipping tea and humming to himself. His eyes twinkled when he saw Benny. "Well, good morning, Benny Breezy. Come give your old grandpa a bear hug," Papa Pine chuckled. Benny hugged him tight and told him all about his idea to walk to the lake beyond the meadows. Maybe he thought Grandpa would like to come along. But Papa Pine shook his head gently and said, "Oh, I'd love to wander, but today feels like a perfect day to sit still and let my thoughts drift like clouds. Besides," he added, glancing at his garden, "I promised myself I'd tidy up those wildflowers that have turned into a mini jungle." Benny looked at the swaying grass and giggled. "I'll do it for you," he said kindly. "You sit back and relax. I love the smell of fresh grass. It'll be fun." Before Grandpa could say anything, Benny zipped inside, poured his tea into the blue cup with stars, Grandpa's favorite, and brought it back with a smile. "Now you relax, and I'll get to work." Benny fetched the gentle push mower from the wooden shed and began mowing. The scent of fresh grass floated through the air. He moved back and forth across the yard, humming a happy little tune to himself. Buzz, swish, buzz, swish. When he finished, the garden looked neat and peaceful again. Benny looked up and saw that Papa Pine had dozed off in the hammock, the teacup empty and resting beside him. His gentle snore sounded like soft rustling leaves. Not wanting to wake him, Benny tiptoed inside and found the small tin where Grandpa saved some clippings for his famous grassy green tea. He filled it up, then gathered the rest into a little basket. He gave his grandpa a quiet wave and tiptoed back onto the path, carrying the basket of grass trimmings. He thought maybe someone else can use these today. Just a short walk away, Benny came across Millie the meadow mouse, who was crouched beside her garden patch wearing her floppy sun hat. "Good morning, Benny," Millie squeaked cheerfully. "What brings you out and about?" "I just finished mowing Grandpa's lawn," Benny replied, holding up his basket. "Do you think you could use some fresh grass trimmings?" Millie's eyes lit up. "Oh, I could. They're perfect for keeping my garden soil cool. I've just planted turnips and lettuce." When Benny asked how much she needed, Millie peeked into the basket and said, "Well, if no one else is needing it, I could really use all of it." Benny happily handed it over. "All yours," Millie grinned and said, "You're such a helpful bear, Benny. Speaking of which, I've got more fluff than I know what to do with. I've been brushing out my winter coat and now I've got heaps of soft fur in my basket inside. Do you know anyone who might need some?" Benny didn't need any fur himself, but he said warmly, "I can carry it with me, just in case I meet someone who does." Millie exchanged the clippings for the soft fluff and thanked Benny as he waved goodbye and continued on. A little further along, Benny reached a stony clearing where a group of sleepy bunnies were hopping around, playing games in the sun. Their parents were nearby, resting in the shade of a willow tree. Benny smiled and waved. "Hello. I've got a bundle of soft fluff from Millie. Would any of you be able to use it?" The mother bunnies looked at one another, delighted. "Oh yes," said one. "Our little ones are growing out of their cozy clothes so fast. We could use the fluff to make new pajamas, and even school scarves." Another nodded. "We're also expecting some cousins to visit soon, so we'll need extra blankets and cushions too." Benny placed the fluff-filled basket gently in front of them. "Please take all of it," he said kindly. The bunnies were overjoyed and thanked him again and again. "As a thank you," one mother bunny added, "would you like some of this soft straw we've cleared? We've got no use for it now." Benny accepted the offer with a smile and swapped the fluff for the straw. He waved goodbye and continued his journey toward the lake. As the forest began to thin and the sky turned a soft golden yellow, Benny found himself passing through an apple orchard. There, standing next to a tree with a ladder leaning against it, was Gordon the goat, looking puzzled. "Hey there, Benny," he called. "Off on another calm adventure." "I'm heading toward the lake," Benny replied. "And I've got this basket of straw. Do you think it could help you out?" Gordon laughed. "Just what I need. My apple harvest's been so big this year, I've run out of baskets to carry them in." He peered into the basket and asked if he could have some of the straw. "Take as much as you like," Benny said cheerfully. Gordon smiled. "You know, if you've got time, I can teach you how to weave baskets from this straw. It's a peaceful thing to do, and it might come in handy someday." Benny's eyes lit up. "I'd love that." And so, under the gentle light of the setting sun, Benny sat with Gordon and began learning the art of basket weaving, slowly, calmly, and joyfully. Benny smiled and thanked Gordon the goat for his kindness. The goat, with a cheerful grin, motioned to a shady spot beneath the apple tree. "Take a rest right here," Gordon said. Then, in a blur of hooves and energy, he zipped up the ladder and plucked a few of the ripest, juiciest apples from the high branches. He came back down with a bounce, handing one to Benny. Benny took a big bite. The apple was sweet and crisp. It tasted like sunshine and morning rain, fresh and full of joy. The two friends crunched on their apples together, chatting quietly about the orchard, the breeze, and the silly things goats and bears dream about. Once they'd finished, Gordon picked up the leftover straw Benny had brought and smiled. "Let's turn some of this straw into a basket," he said. Benny's eyes lit up with excitement. He had never made a basket before. At first, the weaving was a bit wobbly. Benny's paws fumbled a little with the straw, trying to bend one strand over the other. But Gordon was patient and encouraging. After a few tries, Benny got the hang of it and was soon weaving like a pro. When he finished, he held up the basket proudly. Gordon clapped his hooves together in delight. "You've done a wonderful job, Benny. Now all it needs is something to fill it." Gordon led Benny through the orchard, picking apples, pears, oranges, and even a few lemons. The fruity smells surrounded them as they walked, and the colors filled Benny's new basket like a rainbow of nature's candy. Benny looked down at the full basket and turned to Gordon. "This is a lot of fruit. Are you sure I can take all of it?" Gordon nodded with a chuckle. "Of course. Look around. I've got plenty more than I could ever eat." Touched by his generosity, Benny handed Gordon the leftover straw and the original basket. "Then you should keep these," he said with a gentle smile. "A fair trade." They waved goodbye and Benny set off again, humming softly. The orchard slowly disappeared behind him as he walked along a pebbled path leading toward the misty mountains. As Benny climbed, he glanced up at the peaks. Thick, fluffy clouds curled around the mountain tops like whipped cream. It looked magical, like something from a dream. Maybe there was an enchanted world waiting just beyond the clouds. Soon, Benny passed a grove of leafy trees. Birds chirped softly from the branches above. He paused under one tree and saw a group of 6 little birds with unique black feather crests on their heads that looked like tiny umbrellas. "Hello there," Benny said kindly. The birds, umbrella birds, blinked their big eyes and chirped in reply. They had just finished singing a lullaby that sounded like wind and waves rolled together. Benny clapped softly and told them they were wonderful singers. "Would you like some fruit?" he asked, lifting the colorful basket. The umbrella birds sang in harmony. "Yes, please. Singing takes lots of energy." Benny sat with them while they enjoyed the fruit. The pears, oranges, and apples were soon munched up happily. Once their little tummies were full, the birds flapped their wings and sang again, this time just for Benny. They tried to teach him the words, but Benny couldn't remember them all. So he just hummed along and let the music fill his heart. Eventually, he said goodbye and resumed his journey up the winding mountain path, still humming the umbrella bird's sweet tune. The scent of blooming orchids drifted through the air, hidden in little cracks of the rocks. The mountain felt more alive the higher he climbed. As Benny rounded a bend in the path, he saw someone sitting on a rock, watching the sky. It was a yellow-tailed woolly monkey with an orange waistcoat and a friendly twinkle in his eye. "Hi there," Benny waved. "Hello," the monkey replied. "I'm Marlowe. I haven't seen you up here before." "I'm Benny," said the bear, smiling. "I'm on a quiet walk today." "It's been a good one." Benny wasn't sure what monkeys ate, but he offered Marlowe some fruit from his basket just in case. Marlowe beamed. "Oh, pears. My favorite." He invited Benny to sit with him and enjoy the view. Together, they watched the clouds drift across the sky while Marlowe nibbled happily on a juicy pear. Benny told him about his walk, about Papa Pine's hammock, the soft mowing, the singing birds, and how every friend he'd met gave or received something kind. As he spoke, Benny felt his heart grow warm. Everyone had shared something, a smile, a gift, a word of kindness. It made him feel part of something special. He told Marlowe, "It's such a nice feeling, giving things to others and seeing them smile." Marlowe nodded. "That's a beautiful thing, Benny. But you know, giving feels best when it's matched by receiving too." Benny tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Marlowe finished his pear and wiped his mouth with his fluffy tail. "You gave me this fruit and it made me happy. But now I want to give something back, not because I must but because I want to. That way, the joy flows both ways." Benny smiled gently. "You don't have to give me anything, Marlowe. Sitting here with you, enjoying the view, that's a gift already." Marlowe grinned. "Phil, I'd like to." He reached into the pocket of his little waistcoat and pulled out a tiny, carefully sculpted figure. It was a miniature monkey, just like him, complete with a yellow tail and an orange waistcoat. It was made of dried mountain clay, smoothed and shaped with care. "I made this myself," he said proudly. "From the soft mud down in the valley. The sun up here dried it perfectly." Benny took the little sculpture gently in his paw and placed it in his basket, nestled between the last of the fruit. "Thank you, Marlowe. I'll treasure it always." The sky above was now painted in soft pinks and golds. "It's getting late," Benny said softly. "I should start heading home." "You're always welcome to visit me again," said Marlowe. "And bring your grandpa too. I'd love to meet him." With a final wave and a full heart, Benny continued on his journey, the tiny monkey statue tucked safely beside him, the mountain path glowing in the golden light of evening. After spending time with Marlowe the monkey and receiving the thoughtful little sculpture, Benny continued his peaceful descent down the mountain. The sun was warming his back once again, wrapping him in its golden glow. As he made his way back through the orchard, he was greeted once more by Gordon the goat. "Benny," Gordon called out happily, "I baked something for you, a fresh apple pie." Gordon beamed with pride as he wrapped the pie gently and placed it into Benny's woven basket. "I thought you might like to take it home." Benny's eyes lit up. "Thank you, Gordon. That smells absolutely delicious." With the warm pie nestled safely in the basket, Benny waved goodbye and carried on his way, his heart full of joy and belly beginning to rumble with anticipation. Further down the path, just before the pebble trail faded into the forest, Benny heard cheerful voices calling his name. It was the family of bunny kits from earlier, the ones who had taken the fluffy wool. This time their parents had something for him. "We've been busy knitting with Millie's fluff," one of the bunny moms said proudly. "And we made you something too." They handed him a soft, woolly blanket, carefully folded and warm from the afternoon sun. "It'll keep you nice and cozy during the snowy nights," she added. Benny's heart melted. "This is the kindest gift. Thank you so much." The bunnies helped him roll up the blanket and tuck it into his already full basket. Benny promised to take good care of it and continued along the trail, humming a gentle tune to himself. Just as he neared the path back home, he spotted a familiar fuzzy figure standing by a wooden garden gate. It was Millie the meadow mouse again, waiting with a bundle of orange carrots in her paws. "These are from my garden," Millie said sweetly. "Perfect for stew, and even better when shared." Benny accepted the carrots gratefully, his basket now brimming with gifts, warmth, and kindness from all the friends he'd met. Finally, Benny arrived at his grandpa's cozy wooden cottage nestled under the tall pine tree. Papa Pine was sitting in his favorite deck chair, looking up at the sky. When he saw Benny, he broke into a joyful grin. "There's my breezy bear. Come, sit beside me." Benny placed the full basket down beside the chair and plopped onto the bench next to his grandpa. Papa Pine gently patted his arm. "I heard you mowed the lawn and shared the clippings," he said proudly. "You've had quite the adventure today, haven't you?" Benny nodded and began unpacking the day's treasures. He told Papa Pine all about the friends he'd met: Gordon the goat's apple pie, the bunny's blanket, Millie's carrots, and the tiny sculpture from Marlowe the monkey. Papa Pine's eyes twinkled as Benny held up the tiny model. "Now that's something special," he said. "That little monkey looks like he put his whole heart into making it. You should keep that on your mantle. It'll always remind you of today." With a slow stretch, Papa Pine got up and wandered into the kitchen. He returned moments later with 2 tall glasses of iced pine tea, their rims frosted and sparkling in the fading light. Benny took a big, refreshing sip. The cool, earthy taste washed away all the tiredness from his paws. "Ah," he sighed. "This really was the most magical day." Papa Pine nodded. "And I imagine the animals you met feel just as lucky to have met you." The 2 bears sat in comfortable silence, watching the colors of the sky melt into one another. Shades of gold faded into lavender, and a silver glow started to peek over the distant hills. "Shall we stay out here to watch the sunset?" Papa Pine asked. "I'd love to," Benny whispered. And so they sat, one old, one young, side by side, letting the peaceful night settle around them like a blanket. A full moon began to rise, big and bright, casting a soft glow across the valley. Benny closed his eyes for a moment and thought about all the animals he had met. He thought about Marlowe's words, how giving and receiving go hand in hand. And now, sitting beside his grandpa under the moonlight, he felt full, not just in his basket but in his heart. Just then, the wind chimes on the porch gently sang their sleepy tune. Ting, ting, ting. Papa Pine leaned back and looked at the sky. "Look up there, Benny. Do you see that first star?" Benny opened his eyes and followed his grandpa's gaze. "It's shining extra bright tonight," he said, pointing to the twinkling light resting in the deep blue sky like a diamond on soft velvet. "And the moon," Papa Pine said softly. "It looks bigger than usual." "There's magic in the air tonight," Benny whispered. "You always say that, Grandpa," Benny giggled. Papa Pine chuckled. "That's because every evening is magical, if we slow down enough to notice it. This time of day, when everything's done but bedtime hasn't quite arrived, it's the perfect time to reflect, to breathe, to dream." Benny looked at his soft blanket, his sculpture, and his sleepy pie-filled basket. He leaned into his grandpa's side and yawned a big, contented yawn. "Bedtime is my favorite part of the day," he mumbled. "I get to snuggle into my soft bed, hold my little teddy, and drift into the best dreams ever." Papa Pine smiled, his eyes closing as he whispered back, "Then let's dream, little bear." The best kind of dreams come after the kindest kind of days. And with that, the stars above twinkled, the wind whispered through the trees, and Benny the Breezy Bear closed his eyes under the glowing full moon, the happiest and sleepiest bear in the world. The sky deepened into a peaceful navy blue as Benny walked through the final stretch of Pinecloud Valley. One by one, more stars began to sparkle above, and the big full moon glowed like a silver lantern in the sky. As he passed the meadow, Benny spotted a sleepy figure resting high in a tree. It was Flora the sloth, his good friend. She was hugging a thick branch tightly, her soft cheek resting on the wood, already half dreaming. Benny smiled up at her and waved gently. Flora opened one eye, looked like she was about to say something, but instead let out the tiniest sigh, blinked once, and promptly fell asleep, snoring softly through her nose. Grandpa chuckled behind Benny and whispered, "Good night, Flora. Sweet dreams." They continued walking slowly beneath the moonlight. Near the riverbank, families of otters floated lazily on their backs, their paws linked, gazing up at the stars. The sound of bubbling water was joined by the faint splashes of giggles from tiny otter pups. Across the bank, a family of frogs stood in perfect rows, stretching their little green arms toward the moon as they practiced their evening yoga. Benny giggled as he mimicked their poses, standing tall like a tree, then bending like a moonflower. "Grandma?" Benny asked, pointing to a mole seated peacefully on a sun-warmed rock. "What's he doing?" Grandma leaned in and whispered, "He's meditating." Benny tilted his head. "It means he's quieting his mind," she explained gently. "He's breathing slowly and deeply. It helps him relax. I do that sometimes too." Benny nodded slowly. "Maybe I'll try that before bed." As they padded along the winding path, the forest animals were getting ready for the night. A hedgehog scurried past, dragging a bundle of leaves into his cozy hollow log. In a nearby tree, squirrels munched their last chestnuts and sunflower seeds before curling into their nests. Tiny field mice brushed their whiskers, washed their paws, and slipped into their pajamas. Some tucked themselves into walnut shell beds. Others snuggled into hammocks made of twine and petals. Cicadas sang a soft chorus from the grass, and fireflies danced in slow spirals through the trees like glowing wishes. The scent of chamomile and moss drifted by on the gentle wind. As they reached a clearing, Benny spotted a small bear cub sitting outside a cave, counting stars in the sky. It was Napoleon, one of Benny's friends. He gave Benny a sleepy wave and whispered, 138. Then he yawned, blinked, and started over again. Before he could reach 4 this time, his eyes fluttered shut and his head rested on his papa's arm. "Good night, Napoleon," Benny whispered with a smile. Grandpa Bear leaned down to Benny and said softly, "Looks like it's time we head home too." They turned down a quieter path, one that led through a grove of whispering trees. There they met Amber the fox, glowing orange in the moonlight. She loved to walk at night and tell bedtime stories along the way. "Do you know the one about the owl who speaks to the moon?" Benny asked. Amber's eyes sparkled. "That's one of my favorites." As they strolled, she told the tale of a wise owl who polished stars with her feathers whenever the moon grew dim. Benny had heard it before, but he loved every word just the same. Soon Benny's cozy cave came into view. Amber said goodnight and padded off into the woods. Benny climbed the wooden steps to the cave's porch with his grandpa and grandma right behind. Inside, everything smelled of pine cones and home. Papa Pine said warmly, "I've run a bubble bath for you, Benny." Benny took off his explorer's cloak and hung it next to Grandma's knitted shawl. He tidied his toys and books, then tiptoed into the bathroom. The tub was full of puffy bubbles, bobbing on the surface like fluffy clouds. The soft scent of lavender, roses, and forest herbs filled the air. Benny took a deep breath, his favorite smell in the world. He climbed in and let the warmth soak into his paws. The bubbles tickled his nose, and he giggled softly. He shaped them into cloud hats and beards, placing one on himself, and one on his papa too. "You look very fancy," Benny said. Papa Pine looked in the mirror and laughed. The most fashionable bear in the woods. Together, they blew bubbles into the air and watched them float and pop gently. After the bath, Papa wrapped Benny in a thick towel warmed on the radiator. Benny's favorite pajamas, the ones with little honeybees, were waiting nearby. They smelled of sunshine and clean air. Benny dried off, slipped into his pajamas, and padded back to the living room. Grandma was just about to close the curtains. "Wait," Benny said. "Let's look at the moon one more time." They all turned to the window. The stars twinkled like diamonds on velvet. The moon sat high, round and glowing, and far off in the distance, an owl hooted softly. Benny whispered, "I wonder if she's polishing the stars again." Grandma chuckled and pulled the curtains closed. The cave instantly felt warmer, cozier, sleepier. "You smell like a dream," Grandma smiled. "Lavender, roses, and sleepy bubbles." She took Benny's paw and led him to the sofa where the fire was crackling quietly. Benny curled up between Grandma and Mama Bear. His little paws wrapped around a warm mug of hot chocolate with cream on top. Papa brought drinks for everyone and lit the lanterns on either side of the room. The gentle orange glow flickered like fireflies on the walls. "This is the best hot chocolate ever," Grandma said. "I'm already sleepy," Mama Bear whispered. "I think it's bedtime soon." Grandpa Bear took out his ukulele and played a slow, peaceful tune. Benny blinked once, then twice. The melody wrapped around him like a blanket. He sipped his hot chocolate slowly, warmth filling his tummy. His eyes grew heavy. The flames danced. The stars outside shimmered. Benny yawned. "Tonight," he whispered, "might be my favorite night ever." The family smiled around him. And as Benny drifted into dreams of cloud-shaped bubbles, floating stars and storytelling owls, the moon watched over Pinecloud Valley. And Benny the Breezy Bear slept, safe, sound, and surrounded by love. After his warm bath and his bubbling laughter with Papa Pine, Benny got into his coziest pajamas, the yellow ones with tiny honeybees on them. He loved how they felt like sunshine and sleepy clouds wrapped into one. "I always love bath time," Benny said dreamily. "Especially when I get to wear these pajamas after. And watching the fire while the bubbles are still on my nose." "Well, not on my nose, Grandma," he giggled. "I wipe them off first." Grandma Bear and Mama Bear chuckled warmly. "And do you know what I love most about bedtime?" Benny asked with a yawn. "Is it listening to bedtime stories?" Grandma guessed. Benny's eyes lit up. "Yes. How did you know?" Grandma winked. "Because it's always the first thing you ask for once you're tucked in bed." Benny grinned. She was absolutely right. As the bear family strolled slowly back to their cave, the sky darkened even more. More stars peeked out one by one, each one brighter than the last. Papa Pine and Father Bear walked ahead, occasionally glancing back with peaceful smiles. In the distance, an owl hooted gently. Nearby, a mother rabbit stood at the entrance of her cozy burrow, gazing at the night sky. "What a lovely evening," she said softly. "The stars seem to shine a little brighter tonight, don't they?" The bears nodded and smiled. 3 tiny bunnies popped out of the burrow behind her and waved goodnight to Benny. He waved back as they disappeared into their home. Back at the fireside, Grandpa Bear reached for his pink ukulele that leaned beside his chair. He cradled it gently and began to strum its soft strings. A delicate, dreamy melody floated into the room like a lullaby on the breeze. He began to sing, a gentle song about a forest fairy named Twilight Fern, who danced with the stars one magical night. Benny knew this song well. It was one of his favorites. He sipped the last of his hot chocolate, set his cup on the side table, and leaned back, letting the tune wrap around him like a blanket. His eyes fluttered. Grandpa sang one more song, slower this time. The fire cracked softly in the hearth. Benny yawned and leaned against Grandma, who kissed the top of his fuzzy head. "It's bedtime, sweetheart," she whispered. Benny blinked. "Can I still have a bedtime story?" "Of course, my little bear. Say good night first." Benny gave everyone warm hugs, trying not to yawn too much, but one or two snuck out anyway. He was so very sleepy. Grandma scooped him up and carried him to his little room. His soft cloud blanket was already folded back, waiting just for him. She tucked him in gently. Benny reached for his plush toy, Milo the mini moon bear, and cuddled him close. "I love my bed," he whispered. The little lamp beside him flickered on, shaped like the moon with twinkling stars swirling around it. It glowed softly, filling the room with gentle light. Grandma sat on the story chair beside Benny's bed. "Which story tonight?" she asked. Benny thought hard. He loved the one about the curious raccoon at the Star Observatory, and the tale about the gentle giraffe who helped birds learn to fly. There was the story of the magical forest market, and his favorite, the tale about the School of Hidden Wonders where two siblings discovered magic inside every classroom. "Can we have the one about the magic school, Grandma?" "First one. When the adventure starts." Grandma smiled. "That one's special." "All right." She made sure Benny's blanket was snug and cozy. "Are you warm enough?" Benny nodded and snuggled deeper. Grandma began the story in a low, soothing voice. She spoke of the magical train that arrived in the mist, the spiral staircase that led to invisible libraries, and the floating maps that whispered secrets. Benny closed his eyes and listened, letting each word take him further into the story. He remembered what Grandma had taught him. Deep, calming breaths. Now. Now. The story flowed. So did the breath. A soft drowsiness began to travel through Benny, from the tips of his fuzzy ears down to his cozy toes. The blanket felt warmer, his bed softer. Now. Grandma's voice faded gently into his dreams. Benny the Breezy Bear was fast asleep, the happiest, calmest, and coziest bear in all of Pinecloud Valley. Benny the Breezy Bear was still thinking about dreams. Not just any dreams, but the colorful, cozy, and curious dreams all his friends had been telling him about. From the mountaintop melodies of Marlowe the monkey, to the starry knitting of the bunny families, and the floating tales of Gordon the goat. Everyone, it seemed, had a dream worth smiling about. But one creature hadn't shared his dream just yet. His name was Sparrowtail, a tiny owl with wild feathers, a curious heart, and far too much energy for sleep. Everyone just called him Sparky. Sparky was fascinated by houses. All sorts of homes. From cottages and cabins to high-rises and hobbit-like holes in the ground. He'd once flown into a glass house and gotten so excited, he accidentally zipped into the back of a wardrobe. The door swung shut, and he ended up napping on a coat hanger for half the afternoon before finding his way out again. Today he was zipping through the skies again, listening to stories. Earlier, Hank the Bull had told Sparky the most vivid dream, about butterflies and waterfalls, a magical frog with a beret who painted portraits with starlight, and a mossy cave that glowed with wishes. Sparky had blinked through the whole story, his eyes wide and wonder-filled. But even though his feathers began to feel heavy and a yawn knocked at his beak, he flapped it away. Instead, he waved goodbye and fluttered on. "If Hank isn't up for log balancing," Sparky chirped, "maybe Fergus the ginger cat wants to chase tails by the sea." Fergus lived in a cozy conservatory, the last house in the village before the lane that led to the beach. Sparky knew that at this time of day, the sun would be shining on Fergus's favorite armchair like a golden spotlight. He tapped on the glass with his beak. "Fergus." "Tail chasing at sunset." Inside, Fergus yawned. A big, slow cat stretch sort of yawn. He had been napping in the sun while Mrs. Hazelberry was away visiting her sister. A rare, peaceful time when there were no pots clanging or vacuum cleaners humming. "I would love to, truly," Fergus said with a slow tail flick. "But I've just floated out of the most delightful dream, and I'd very much like to float back in." And so, for the third time that day, Sparky found himself sitting quietly, listening to a dream. It didn't occur to him that this was odd, that all his friends were talking about sleeping, or that he hadn't yet done it himself. He was far too enchanted by the dreams to notice. Fergus told him how he had settled onto the sofa, his paws splayed wide to soak in the sunlight, and began counting imaginary stars to drift off. Silver stars shaped like willow trees and winking moons. In his dream, Fergus had floated on a flying carpet, soft as marshmallow clouds, soaring above meadows and rivers over snowy mountains, until the carpet gently landed on a field of purple heather. There, at the mountain's peak, a kind llama strummed a lullaby on a tiny guitar, sending birds spiraling into the sky on the notes. The melody carried Fergus over the sea, where dolphins danced on twilight waves, whales basked in sun-warmed waters, and seagulls soared with pearls nestled in open oyster shells. The stars blinked on in the darkening sky, and the waves whispered songs no one had ever heard before. When Fergus finished, Sparky's beak quivered with a yawn. He tried to hide it with his wing, just like his mom had taught him, but it snuck out anyway. He missed the knowing smiles exchanged between his friends. He didn't see Twitch the bunny peeking from the rose bushes, or Hank watching from the garden wall. They were all there, Fergus, Twitch, Hank, hoping their stories had worked a little magic on their friend. That just maybe Sparky would finally believe sleep could be a wonderful thing. That night, as the stars took their places in the sky, Sparky flapped home, slowly, dreamily, for the very first time. His mama, auntie, and grandmother had stayed up through the day, hoping this would be the night. The night their wide-eyed little owl wouldn't yawn until dawn, but would snuggle down and sleep. When Sparky arrived, he didn't resist when his mama polished his beak. He didn't argue when Grandma tugged on his bright red bed socks and tucked his wings beneath his softest blanket. And he didn't object when Auntie sat on the wooden stool beside his bed and began to hum. "Yes, please," Sparky murmured. "Twitch's mama sings lullabies too. I think I'd like one tonight." And so they sang. A lullaby passed down through generations. A song about riding moonbeams, painting stars with laughter, and drifting gently back to earth on a lily leaf to float into dreams. For the first time in forever, Sparky didn't feel like he was missing anything by going to bed. He didn't imagine all the things happening outside. He didn't wiggle or flap or fidget or worry. Instead, he breathed. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Still. 1, 2, 3. Again. Hold. With each breath, his chest rose and fell more slowly. His wings relaxed. His eyes grew heavy. And then, just like that, he fell asleep. He didn't see his mother smile. He didn't feel the glowworms dim their lights. He didn't know he was already dreaming. In his dream, Sparky was flying, not just in the night sky, but to a place he'd never been. Over oceans bluer than any he'd seen, through clouds made of vanilla and sunlight. There were animals he'd never met, flowers with voices, mountains that told stories. The sea sparkled with laughter, and the sky wrapped around him like a blanket. He landed on a quiet island where all his friends, Twitch, Fergus, Hank, and more, were lying on their backs, watching the moon write poems across the stars. A rainbow stretched across the sky, linking dreams to the waking world, and Sparky smiled in his sleep. He had discovered the secret. That dreams aren't just what you miss while you're sleeping. They're what you find when you finally do. Benny the Breezy Bear was usually pretty good at finding his sleepy rhythm. He loved soft blankets, bedtime cocoa, and listening to Grandpa's gentle ukulele tunes. But sometimes, just sometimes, his paws would tingle, his ears would twitch, and his thoughts would whirl so fast he couldn't rest at all. And last night was just like that. He'd asked his mama 1,000 questions before she could even drift off. "Mama, do stars have names? Mama, is the moon awake all night? Mama, did you see that owl fly past the window? Mama, do fireflies glow when they dream?" Eventually, after answering 872 questions and yawning so wide she swallowed a tiny moth, Mama Bear said kindly, "Benny, sweetheart, I think you need a new bedtime adventure." "A new adventure?" Benny blinked. "Yes," she said, fluffing her pillow. "Why don't you go and ask the forest animals for their secrets to falling asleep? Maybe they can share their tips and help you find your own perfect way to drift off." And with that, she gently nudged him toward the door with a kiss on the forehead and the sleepy words, Come back with 5 good ideas. And don't wake me unless one of them involves magic. Benny set off into the twilight with a little notebook tucked into his satchel, determined to discover the secrets of sleep. The first animal he came across was Walter the wild boar. "Excuse me," Benny asked politely. "Would you mind telling me the secret of sleep? I'm Benny the bear who can't get any Z's." Walter scratched his ear with a muddy hoof and considered the question seriously. "Well, Benny," he said, "I like to sleep right in the middle of my family pile. All of us boars squished together under a blanket of leaves. I rest my head on my brother's back, and someone else rests theirs on me. We're like one big cozy puzzle. Sometimes I can't even tell whose snout is whose until we wake up." Benny giggled. "And before I sleep," Walter added, "I count beetles crawling across the bark. Never make it past 10 before I'm out cold." "Thanks, Walter," Benny said, scribbling notes. He turned around and ran straight back toward his den to tell Mama. But she was already dreaming of honeycombs and hot springs. Her snores rumbled gently like a faraway thunderstorm. Benny paused, then spotted Greta the giraffe nibbling at the treetops and decided not to wake Mama just yet. "Excuse me, Greta," Benny called. "Could you share your secret to falling asleep?" Greta blinked her long lashes and slowly craned her neck down to Benny's eye level. Let me think. I usually sleep standing up," she said, "with my head resting against a tall tree." Benny's eyes widened. "While standing?" "Oh yes," she nodded. "Sometimes I get hungry in the middle of the night. If I lean against the right tree, I only have to stretch my tongue an inch to grab a midnight snack." "That's smart," Benny said. "I do make sure the tree has just the right flavor of leaves," she added seriously. Benny chuckled and waved goodbye as she returned to munching from the tallest branch. He ran back again to share the idea, but Mama was now dreaming about floating hammocks and flower petal pillows. Just as he was about to whisper to her, she mumbled, "Go find 5 animals, my sweet bear." So Benny sighed softly and tiptoed off once more. This time, he spotted Luna the leopard stretching in the sunshine beneath a giant willow. "Excuse me, Miss Leopard," he said. "I'm Benny and I can't get any Z's. Do you know the secret to sleep?" Luna purred gently. "Come here, little bear. Look at that branch." Benny followed her gaze to a long, curved bough covered in moss. "That," she said, "is my perfect napping spot. I leap up, nestling my paws into the soft moss, and let my tail hang down. The breeze swings me just a little, like a cradle in the sky." Benny looked impressed. "Can I try?" He climbed halfway up the tree, slipped a little, and landed on the ground with a thump. Luna padded over and helped him up. "Maybe tree sleeping isn't for you, but someone else out there will have a dream trick just right for bears like you." Benny thanked her kindly and spotted Ellie the elephant just beyond the clearing. "Excuse me, Ellie," Benny called. "Do you know how to fall asleep? I'm the bear who can't seem to sleep at all." Ellie turned with a calm, thoughtful gaze. "Well, Benny, look at me. I'm not small. And I eat a lot." Benny nodded solemnly. "So," Ellie continued, "I nap standing up sometimes. But my favorite trick is to snack while I doze." Benny's eyes widened. "Eat and sleep at the same time?" Ellie nodded. "I gently munch a few leaves, then drift off. My trunk even keeps feeding me while I snore." "That's amazing. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone," Ellie added. "But it works for me." She smiled and reached out with her trunk to ruffle Benny's fur. "I heard Hippo knows something interesting too." Benny thanked Ellie and trotted toward the riverside where Hazel the hippo was about to slide into her muddy pool. "Hazel," he called, "do you have a sleep secret?" Hazel grinned. "I sure do, Benny. I sleep underwater." "Underwater?" Benny gasped. "Yep. I sink down into the cool, squishy mud and snooze. My body floats up just enough every few minutes so I can breathe. Then I sink right back down." "That sounds like a sleepy seesaw." Hazel chuckled. "That's exactly what it feels like." Benny's notebook was full now, Boar cuddles, giraffe snacks, leopard tree swings, elephant eating naps, and hippo breathing mud baths. With the stars twinkling above, he finally turned toward home. When Benny returned to the den, Mama was still fast asleep, but she stirred when she heard his soft steps. "Hey, honey," she mumbled, eyes half closed. "Did you find your 5?" Benny curled up beside her, notebook resting under his chin. "I did," he said with a sleepy smile. "And I think I've figured something out." "What's that?" Mama whispered. "Everyone has their own way of finding sleep. Some snuggle, some stand, some sway, and some float." He paused, his voice getting quieter. "I think I just need to find what makes me feel peaceful. And maybe, just maybe." But Benny didn't finish. He had already drifted off, tucked against Mama's soft side, blanket pulled up to his ears, dreaming of giraffe trees, mossy leopard swings, and hippo seesaws made of mud and magic. The stars shone softly over the forest, and the breeze rustled like a lullaby. Benny the Breezy Bear was finally getting his Z's. Benny the Breezy Bear had heard many wonderful sleep secrets from his forest friends, but he wasn't done yet. The final part of his sleepy adventure was waiting, and he was determined to learn just a little more before heading home. His paws padded softly along the riverside, where he had just spoken to Hazel the hippo, who told him how she slept underwater, floating up to breathe, then sinking back into the mud. It sounded amazing, but as Benny tried holding his breath in the shallow stream beside her, he quickly discovered something. "I don't think sleeping underwater is quite my thing," he gasped, spluttering after trying to stay under for just 10 seconds. Hazel chuckled, her voice rumbling through the mud. "It works for me, little bear, but maybe not for you." She blinked her big hippo eyes and smiled gently. "If you're looking for real sleep wisdom, go find a lion. They are the champion sleepers." Then, with a lazy sigh, Hazel slowly sank into the mud until only her eyes and nostrils were visible. "Thank you," Benny called, even though she was almost fully hidden. And so, Benny wandered deeper into the forest, heading toward the sun-dappled plains. It didn't take long to find a lion, a big, golden one, dozing peacefully in the shade of a wide old tree. Her fur was catching the light in soft waves, and her tail flicked now and then to keep the flies away. Benny tiptoed closer. He was just about to poke her paw and ask, "Excuse me, would you mind sharing your sleep secret?" when he remembered something very important. Let sleeping lions lie. That's what Mama Bear had told him once. And when Benny had asked why, she just smiled and said, "You've never seen anything grouchier than a lion who's been woken up." So Benny sat quietly instead, watching. He noticed how the lion had chosen the perfect spot. Shaded, breezy, peaceful. Her body didn't move much, but her tail did just enough to swish the flies away. Every now and then her ears flicked, but she stayed sound asleep. Benny watched her chest rise and fall slowly. Her breath was calm, steady, peaceful. Maybe, he thought, sleep isn't just about where you are or what you're doing. Maybe it's also about feeling safe and still inside. He sat with her a little longer. Then, without making a sound, he tiptoed away. Further along the path, Benny saw Otis the owl, perched quietly in a tree nook. "Otis!" Benny whispered. The old owl opened one eye slowly, then the other. "Ah, young Benny," he hooted softly. "What brings you to the edge of night?" "I'm on a quest," Benny said proudly. "To find the best sleep tips in the whole forest." Otis blinked. "Well then," he said, fluffing his feathers, "you've come to the right perch." Benny smiled. He liked Otis. The owl was wise and calm and always spoke slowly, like he was wrapping his words in feathers. "Here's the thing," Otis began. "Sleep doesn't always need rules. Sometimes, it's as simple as allowing yourself to stop chasing the day." He tilted his head toward the sky. "I close my eyes when the stars first blink. I tuck my beak beneath my wing. And I imagine every breath is a soft cloud, floating in and floating out." Otis took a deep breath. So did Benny. Three. I do that," Otis whispered, until I feel like I'm drifting on moonlight. Benny nodded slowly, his own eyelids fluttering. Just then, a squirrel darted by. Suki the squirrel, with her arms full of blankets made from moss and feathers. "Hey, Benny," she chirped. "Still collecting sleepy secrets?" "Sure am," he smiled. "Well, here's mine," she said, twirling like a leaf in the wind. "I fluff my nest, curl my tail over my nose, and I always end my day with something I'm thankful for." "What kind of things?" Benny asked. A good pine cone. A giggle with a friend. Cozy place to sleep. Gratitude is like a lullaby," she said with a wink. "But inside your heart." Benny scribbled that in his notebook. "Thank you, Suki." "You're welcome," she squeaked, darting off into the branches. Benny's notebook was full now. He looked down at all the sleep tips and ideas. Snuggle piles and tangled toes. Tree snacks and swaying branches. Underwater naps and muddy dreams. Moonbeam breathing. Gratitude whispers. He realized something. Every animal had their own way. But there was a common thread: calm, comfort, and care. With the stars rising and the wind getting cooler, Benny yawned for real. His feet were tired. His thoughts were soft. He turned toward home. When Benny reached the den, the fire was glowing quietly in the hearth. Grandma Bear was knitting by the window. Grandpa Bear was humming as he polished his ukulele. Mama Bear looked up and smiled warmly. "Well, my little explorer," she said, "did you find what you were looking for?" Benny nodded. "I did. But more than that, I think I found what I needed." He climbed into his bed, the blanket already fluffed and warm. His pillow smelled like fresh honeycomb and chamomile. Mama tucked him in. "What was the best sleep tip you heard?" she asked. Benny thought for a moment. Then he smiled. "Maybe it's not about one tip," he said. "Maybe it's about knowing you're safe and loved, and letting your breath carry you off like a little leaf on a quiet stream." Mama kissed his forehead. "Then I'd say you've found the secret, Benny." She sat beside him and asked if he wanted a lullaby. "No need," he whispered, already drifting. "The forest gave me one today." As Benny's breathing slowed, the stars outside sparkled like glitter scattered across a velvet sky. The wind hushed through the trees like a bedtime song only the forest could sing. And Benny the Breezy Bear, once wide-eyed and full of questions, was now wrapped in dreams, floating gently through stories only sleep could tell. The forest was quiet now, blanketed in moonlight and humming with the soft lullaby of wind in the treetops. Benny the Breezy Bear had spoken to owls, hippos, squirrels, leopards, elephants, and even underwater sleepers, all in his quest to discover the magic behind falling asleep. And yet, despite all the wonderful advice, he still hadn't quite found the answer that felt like his. His notebook was full. His paws were tired. But something in his heart told him to try just one more time. As he wandered past the tall tree where the lion was still sleeping peacefully, tail flicking, breath slow, Benny noticed something low to the ground. It was Timothy the tortoise, walking at a pace only a tortoise could manage. One slow step, followed by a long, thoughtful pause. Benny gently approached. "Excuse me, Mr. Timothy," he said politely. "Would you mind telling me the secret of sleep? I'm Benny, the bear who can't get any Z's." The tortoise blinked at him, once, twice, as if waking from a thought. "Well now," said Timothy, his voice as slow and calm as his walk. "For me, it's easy. I simply tuck myself inside my shell. Dark, quiet, cool, a perfect little cave just for me." He smiled and added, "I carry my bedtime with me wherever I go." Benny tilted his head. "That sounds wonderful." Timothy nodded slowly. "It is. But you don't carry a shell, do you? Then perhaps you'll have to find your own kind of quiet place." And with that, he pulled his legs, head, and tail into his shell, curling into the darkness with a soft sigh. Benny waited for a moment. Soon, a gentle snore echoed from inside the shell, like waves lapping inside a tiny cave. Benny walked back through the moonlit woods, his little bear heart both full and puzzled. He had gathered advice from every animal he could find, and they had all been so kind. When he returned to the den, Mama Bear was just beginning to stir from her nap. She stretched slowly, looked down at her hooves, which in her dream were polished and glittery from a visit to the imaginary Paw and Shine Bear Salon, and sighed a little as reality returned. But her mood brightened immediately when she heard a familiar voice. "Mama! Mama!" Benny called, bouncing gently into the room. She turned, smiling warmly at her cub. "I did it. I asked so many animals. A leopard, an elephant, a hippo, a tortoise. And I looked at a lion just like you said, but I didn't wake her." "Very good, dear," she said proudly. "And what did you learn?" Benny thought for a moment, eyes trailing up toward the ceiling. "Well," he said slowly, "I suppose I learned that everyone sleeps differently. Every animal I met had their own favorite way to fall asleep. Some need water, some need trees, some need to be with others, some need to be alone." He sat down quietly beside his mom. "But," he added a little sadly, "none of their ways really worked for me. I don't have claws to climb, or a long neck to reach snacks at night, or a shell to hide in, or a tail to swish in the trees." Mama Bear pulled him gently into her side. "You're right, Benny. You're not them. And you don't need to be." He looked up confused. "Then what should I do?" Mama gave him a squeeze. "You've already done the most important thing," she said. "You asked. You listened. You tried. Sometimes," she continued, brushing a bit of moss from his ear, "we don't need to copy someone else's way. We just need to find our own." "But how?" Benny whispered. Mama reached into his satchel and pulled out his notebook. She flipped through the pages, reading all his notes. Then she said, "Why don't we build your perfect sleep from all the things that felt right to you?" Benny thought carefully. "Well, I liked Walter the wild boar's idea of snuggling with others. That felt warm." Mama nodded and pulled a soft quilt over them both. "And I liked Otis the owl's idea of breathing slowly." Mama smiled. "Shall we try it?" Together they inhaled gently. 3. 3. Again. Inhale and exhale. Benny's shoulders relaxed. "I liked Hazel's idea of having the earth close," Benny added. So Mama helped him place his paw gently on the wooden floor of their den, where the ground was cool and smooth. "There," she whispered. "A little connection to the forest beneath you." "And I loved Suki's tip about thinking of things you're thankful for," Benny said with a yawn. "What are you thankful for tonight?" Mama asked softly. Benny closed his eyes and whispered, "Warm blankets. My friends. The moon. Your hugs." Mama kissed his forehead. "Perfect. And I liked Timothy the tortoise's shell. I wish I had a little cozy shell." "You do," Mama whispered, tucking the quilt tighter around him. "This den is your shell. Your quiet place. You're just right for Benny Cave." Benny blinked slowly. The fire was low. The stars outside were brighter now. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves whispering soft lullabies. "Mama," he said sleepily. "Yes, my bear. I think I found my way." Mama smiled and rested her head next to his. "Tell me," she whispered. "I take deep breaths. I snuggle in soft things. I think about the good stuff. And I let the forest sing me to sleep. Then that," she said, "is your secret." That night, Benny didn't worry about finding the perfect trick or copying anyone else's sleep style. He knew his way was just right for him. And as his eyes closed and his little paws curled beneath the quilt, he smiled softly, because he finally understood. Sleep wasn't a puzzle. It wasn't something to chase. It was something to welcome. Something to fall gently into, like a leaf gliding down from a tree, or a cloud drifting through the sky, or a little bear snuggling into the one place he felt truly safe. And there, in the heart of the forest, wrapped in love and soft quiet, Benny the Breezy Bear finally, completely, peacefully, slept. Benny sat in the quiet of the evening forest, warm from the wisdom of every friend he'd met that day. He had tried to sleep like a tree-climbing leopard, a splashing hippo, a flying owl, even like a tortoise in a cozy shell. But no matter how hard he tried, none of their ways had worked quite right for him. "I can't climb trees like Luna the leopard," Benny sighed, "or float underwater like Harmony the hippo. I don't have a shell like Timothy the tortoise, and I certainly can't sleep for 20 hours like Clarence the cat." Mama Bear looked at him with kind eyes and a swish of her paw. "Perhaps, my little Benny," she said gently, "you just need to find your own way to fall asleep. Something that's made just for you." She nodded toward the trees at the edge of the den. "Why don't you look over there?" Benny followed her gaze and blinked in surprise. Across the glade, beneath a canopy of stars and rustling leaves, were other bears. Not just one or two, a whole gentle herd of cousins and neighbors and forest friends. And each one was doing something different. One bear was rocking slowly from side to side while humming. Another was curled in a hammock made of ivy and moss. A third sat against a tree with eyes shut, counting on her paws. And most curious of all, a few little cubs were sleeping, standing up, their knees locked in place, heads tilted forward, soft snores puffing out like baby clouds. "They're sleeping standing up?" Benny asked wide-eyed. Mama Bear smiled. "Just for a little bit at a time. It helps some bears feel safe and steady. They don't need to lie down for hours." "Nope," said Mama Bear. "Some animals do. Don't. We're all different. We do different things during the day, and we rest in different ways at night. And that's perfectly okay." She gave him a little squeeze. "Some bears like to sleep with their heads on a pillow. Some curl into a blanket like a cinnamon roll. Some need fresh air through the window and their toes sticking out. Some like a warm quilt right up to their chins." Benny's ears perked up. It felt good, comforting even, to know there wasn't just one way to rest. "So," Benny asked slowly, "should I try the bear way?" Mama chuckled. "I think that's a wonderful idea." Benny stood up tall. He straightened his legs. He took a slow breath in and let it out. Then he locked his knees just like the other cubs. First it felt a little silly. He wobbled once. Then he wobbled again. But then, something happened. His eyelids started to flutter shut. His breath softened. His busy brain slowed down. And for the first time in a very long while, Benny fell asleep. Not for hours and hours. Just for 5 beautiful, dream-filled minutes. But oh, what a dream it was. In his dream, Benny soared above the treetops on a carpet of autumn leaves. He zoomed past squirrels in capes, raccoons having a tea party, and frogs riding balloons. He splashed underwater in a shimmering lagoon, playing chase with dolphins and drawing shapes in the sand with his paws. He climbed the tallest tree in the forest, higher than he ever could in real life, and from there he saw stars so close he could almost touch them. He wrapped himself inside a floating, glowing bubble and bounced from cloud to cloud, laughing as shooting stars danced around him. He rode a moonbeam to a mountaintop made of marshmallow fluff. He met fairies that twirled in sunbeams and owls that told stories in song. And in every moment of that dream, Benny felt safe, free, and wonderfully at peace. When he woke up, Benny didn't feel disappointed that it hadn't lasted longer. He took a step forward, nibbled on a bit of clover, then stood again, knees locked, and drifted off once more. He'd found his way. And that was all he needed. That night, back in his den, Benny's room felt different, softer somehow. The glowworms dimmed their lights just right. The wind was whispering lullabies through the leaves. Mama Bear tucked him in, not all the way this time. Just a little blanket across his back, the way he liked it. She didn't ask him to sleep for 8 hours straight. She didn't tell him how to lie or where to put his paws. She just smiled and said, "You know what to do now, Benny." He nodded sleepily. And so, Benny did what he had learned. He stood gently, took a slow breath in, and a slower breath out. He thought of his friends, of kindness, of starlight and moss. He closed his eyes and slept for a few minutes here, a few minutes there, but always peacefully, always happily. And in those short bursts of rest, Benny dreamed of beautiful, impossible things. A beach made of giggles. A rainbow bridge made of bear hugs. A sky where clouds rained glittering blueberries. And each time he woke he smiled. Because Benny the Breezy Bear, the bear who once couldn't catch a single Z, had finally found his way to sleep. And that made all the difference.